Welcome to the Grassroots Army Podcast. This platform is for common sense people looking for up-to-date, accurate, and truthful information without the hot garbage corporate media bias. The power of one can lead to the power of many. You never know what small act that you may say or do that may literally change the lives of millions tomorrow. And don't you ever think that you can't make a difference, because you can. Good evening, my fellow Michiganders. Good evening, my fellow Americans. Welcome to a late edition in the evening, the Grassroots Army Podcast. And I am just not only honored, but extremely excited to have Sheriff Mack on. You guys have been following me over the past couple months. I've been having constitutional sheriffs on the show talking about, how important it is to have that local representation. And so his team got a hold of me, and he's coming on the show today. And so before I go any further, I got to bring this guy on, and we're going to have a nice conversation. Good evening, sir.
Hey, good to be with you, man. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you, Garrett, man. It's a Sunday, and I don't usually do too many shows, so this is the only one I'm doing today. But I'm glad you did it, because it's a perfect fit. Because this is the work of the Lord, and I really believe that in my heart. So, again, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our honor, and thanks again for coming on a Sunday evening. That's for sure. And how many interviews have you done in the past month? You said
by the end of this month, it'll be 41.
Man, that's a lot of airtime, man.
The last 6 weeks, it's actually been 63.
Wow. That is a full schedule. That's for sure.
Yeah. But that's good news and bad news, because usually when things are going bad in government, that's when I'm getting the most calls.
Yes.
People are looking for peaceful and effective solutions, and the constitutional sheriff is both that, peaceful and effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I've been talking about having you on the show here over the past week, and obviously I get attacked by a lot of the left on how, the sheriffs should just fall in line. They should do what the state and the federal government tells them to do. There's no reason that they should have
all go along with tyranny and abuse and oppression. Sheriffs are supposed to go along with that?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. I think they don't even know. They don't even know what the power of the government, how limited it truly is.
Well, it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's how at least it was founded, even though the Democrats continue to try to change it. That's for sure. Yeah. So can you give a little bit of background for those of the people that are watching right now not really familiar with what you've been doing in your past?
Yeah, well, I wish that maybe right now I was retiring from sheriff of Graham County, Arizona, but I haven't been sheriff for over 26 years. But the 8 years I served as sheriff, and I was in law enforcement 20 years, and then 8 of that was as sheriff of Graham County, Arizona. It's a small county. And I did something really crazy when I was sheriff. I got sick and tired of the federal government, overreach, always sticking their nose into Arizona business, sheriff's business. The big thing with Clinton was he was going to put 150,000 new peace officers on the road, but we had to bow down and kiss the ring of the king in order to get that money. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't like the bribery system of Washington, D.C. I don't think there's any such a thing as a legal bribe. So the federal government comes into our cities and counties and states and steals money from us, takes money that is not constitutionally allowed to go to them. They build all these buildings and hire all these people to run this bureaucracy, and then they send us back 3 to 5%. And then we have to bow down and grovel and agree to all the strings attached for them to give us back some of our money. If the states would wake up and stop sending the money to Washington, D.C., that system wouldn't exist anymore, and that state would be the richest state in the union. But we play this game because the Democrats and Republicans, that's what they want us to play. And so I right after my second term, I decided I was going to sue the Clinton administration because of the Brady Bill. And now get this. The Brady Bill was the first time in history where the federal government, Congress, and the White House attempted to commandeer the office of sheriff for federal bidding under a threat of arrest if we failed to comply. And I mean it. I'll even read you the threat of arrest. It's in my little booklet that I put together of the case. And every American should have this book in their pocket. You should have this with you everywhere you go, and you should get about 5 more, 10 more, and pass it around to county commissioners and mayors and city councilmen and county commissioners, and make sure you get one to your county attorney. The county attorneys always tell the sheriff that he can't stand up to tyranny, that he can't keep, literally, that the sheriff cannot keep his oath of office to uphold and defend the Constitution unless the federal government says it's okay. You know, the sheriff is the most independent law enforcement officer anywhere in the county, anywhere in the country. He's the only one that's elected, and he answers. Now, get this, folks, this is true. He has no other boss or supervisor except for we the people. He answers to you and to you alone, and that's what makes us a constitutional republic. And I'm proud of the sheriffs that know and understand that, because that's what keeps us free, is a sheriff that is independent. So anyway, when that stupid Brady Bill came out, I read it, and the BATF sent some agents to our Phoenix, Arizona Association meeting that was in Phoenix, January 21st, 1994. And when we read all that, and we saw that they were threatening to arrest us if we failed to go along with this unconstitutional act, you never heard so much cussing in your life. And this was coming from the other sheriffs. But by the end of the day, all of them acquiesced and said, there's nothing we can do about it. And they said this over and over: you can't fight City Hall. Well, who wants you to believe that? City Hall, or in this case, Washington, D.C. or Congress. And I said, I don't know about you guys. You totally convinced me that we shouldn't be doing this. And I thought you weren't going to do it, but I'm not doing it. And I was the youngest sheriff in the state at the time, and they just kind of poo-pooed me. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no clue that I was going to sue the federal government. But I had a 3-hour drive home. By the time I got home, it hit me, and it hit me hard. You're going to sue your own government. And so my wife endorsed it. She gave me her blessing, and we did it. And I didn't know what to do. You know, Garrett, if I had called you and said, hey, how do I sue the federal government? What would you?
I have no idea.
I know. I didn't either. So I called the NRA, and I wasn't even a member of the NRA, but I called the NRA, and I got bounced around and on hold and bounced around. Finally, I ended up in the office of Richard Gardner. And this is like, the last part of January in 1994, right after the Brady Bill got promulgated, but it didn't go into effect until February 28th, 1994. And I told Richard Gardner who I was and what I wanted to do. And the next line out of his mouth changed my life forever. And he said, Sheriff, we've been preparing the paperwork on this case already, and we've been praying that you would call. And I said, wow. Me? He goes, well, we don't know you. You don't know us really either. Yeah. But we needed a sheriff, and you're the first one to call. Wow. And I said, well, let's go get him. And so I thought they were going to file on the Second Amendment, but he said, we have no standing on the Second Amendment. And I said, well, what paperwork are you preparing? He goes, the 10th Amendment. And I said, states' rights? Because I knew the Constitution. I'd been studying the Constitution ever since I was a rookie cop back in 1983. And so I knew what he was talking about. And I said, well, yeah. I said, I get that. We can save the second through the 10th. And he goes, that's right. And he said, I said, well, that's fantastic. Let's do it. And so we did. We filed on the 10th Amendment because he told me something else I really liked. The federal government has no authority to tell you or any other sheriff what to do. And I said, that's what I was telling those sheriffs, and they didn't buy it. So I said, let's go get them. And on February 28th, 1994, my personal attorney and the attorneys for the NRA filed in federal district court in Tucson, Arizona, Mack v. U.S. And then 6 other sheriffs joined me in the lawsuit, and Sheriff Jay Prince, and his name is attached to the case more than mine. Even we're both mentioned in the case, and I was the first to file. I really was the primary litigant, but he was the first to be heard in Helena, Montana, because Helena didn't have a lot of cases on their calendar there as much as Tucson did. And so he was the first one to, and I found out why, that his name got attached more than mine. But both he and I are mentioned in the case together. And that's what I've always called it since then, is the Mack Prince case, the most powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of America. And that is why, folks, every one of you should have this with you and pass these around so you can convince other people in your local area, that public servants, that we have a responsibility to stand against the federal government, the tyranny of the federal government. As Madison said, erect the barriers against the encroachments of the national authority. And folks, checks and balances and liberty is our calling and our duty. And that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing.
And just going through the pandemic and watching the just hot garbage that was happening to all the businesses and the mandates and everything else. And it was surprising to not see more sheriffs just stand up and say, I'm not enforcing that garbage. But a lot of them just fell right in line with the federal government and the state government.
Yeah, and there was about 550 sheriffs that didn't.
Throughout the country?
But that's only about a sixth of the sheriffs in the nation.
It's too low.
So we need quite a few more than that. And we're having a conference September 7th in Orlando. And we're going to get the sheriffs on board with this whole thing. And this is the credibility that we have. This is the proof that we have. And folks, this was a huge victory for America. It was a huge victory for all of you. That's why you need to use this decision locally and convert people and show them the truth about the 10th Amendment, states' rights, and checks and balances. The states and we the people are the ultimate checks and balances against government tyranny and the oppression of the federal government. So you just said something that reminded me of a powerful story.
Go ahead.
First of all, there's hundreds of examples where sheriffs stood against the federal mandates and the CDC mandates, or the WHO mandates, or the United Nations mandates. That's where they all came from. And so Sheriff Chronister in Florida actually arrested Pastor Rodney Howard Brown for simply conducting church, for having a church service.
Correct.
You would think that the First Amendment and the first principle of liberty detailed within the First Amendment would be protected in America. But it's not if there's an emergency, not if government has to take care of us, and so that's all bull. They don't get to violate principles of liberty in order to take care of us. And they have no authority to take care of us in the first place. So then let's change channels. The Tale of Two Sheriffs, a la The Tale of Two Cities. And then we had Sheriff Glenn Hamilton in New Mexico, who was approached by a pastor in his county, Dr. Caleb Cooper. And he went to the sheriff and he said, Sheriff Hamilton, I am not going to shut my church down because government doesn't run my church. Jesus Christ runs our church. And wow, of course, Hamilton said, but I want to know, Sheriff Hamilton, what you're going to do to protect me and my right to freedom of religion and to keep my church open. And Sheriff Hamilton did just the opposite of what Sheriff Chronister did. And we hope Sheriff Chronister has repented and changed. And we hope that he comes on board with enforcing the Constitution and not mandates that aren't even laws. And so Sheriff Hamilton said to Pastor Cooper, if it takes that I have to go to jail myself, so be it. But I will do everything in my power to keep you open and to protect your rights. And so it was the state doing it. And the state came in and went to shut him down. But Hamilton was ready, and he's very creative. Get this, what he did. He deputized everybody inside that church. And when they came to shut down the church, he told the state police, I have deputized everybody in there. They are under the authority of the sheriff's office. We're keeping this meeting open every Sunday, and you're leaving. They left and they never came back. And Pastor Caleb Cooper never shut down his church, not one day, not once.
People don't realize.
Let me ask all the people. Let me ask all you Michiganders. Michiganders. Sorry, I know how to say Arizonans, but that's what it is.
There you go.
Look, I'm going to ask each of you right now to ask your sheriff, which sheriff do you want in your county? And go ask your sheriff, which one is he? The one that would arrest a pastor, or the one that would protect him in his rights of freedom of religion, to protect him and his congregation to worship how and where and what they may, according to their conscience and not according to the dictates of the CDC or WHO.
See, every single American, regardless of what party affiliation that you're a part of, should want a constitutional sheriff.
Absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't matter which aisle that you're on.
No, we say that all the time, and you're absolutely quoting me in my presentation, because now let's give a historical example. Rosa Parks was arrested December 1st, 1955, for not giving her seat to a white man. Now, there was no statute saying all blacks must give their seats to a white man on a bus. There was no statute even close to that. So what was she arrested for? Disorderly conduct. That's what every peace officer, that's what every police officer says when they don't know what else to do. And so my question, though, is what should have happened that day? Should these two deputy sheriffs that arrested Rosa Parks took her to jail, photographed her, fingerprinted her, and put her in a jail cell? And my question now is to every peace officer today. Sheriff, knowing what we know now about equality, fairness, and God-given rights and civil rights that we are sworn to uphold and defend, would you have arrested Rosa Parks that day? And if you would not, then why do you go after the Amish today, Amish farmers? Why are we arresting Amish farmers? Because they don't pasteurize their milk.
Yep.
Come on, give me a break. This is their religious beliefs, and they've been doing that for 150 years in this country. Wait, why would we do that? But we go after Christians, we go after gun owners, law-abiding gun owners. You don't think Kamala Harris is coming after our guns? You don't think she's coming after law-abiding gun owners? Of course she is, because she's worse than Biden.
Absolutely.
And Obama. She's worse than both of them.
And it's funny, I'm a chiropractor by trade, and I have a lot of Amish patients. And I brought them in during, after the pandemic, they came in. I said, hey, what did you guys do during the pandemic? Did you lock down? He's like, absolutely not. He's like, we don't watch the TV like you. I was like, touche.
Hey, I've worked with Amish all across the country, and I absolutely love them.
Yeah, absolutely do.
And Sam Gerard from Kentucky got 6 years in prison. And Amos Miller right now is fighting to just barely survive with him and his family because Pennsylvania is shutting him down. He's already paid over $300,000 in fines. He's going bankrupt. And this is because of our government. And this is because of government overreach and intrusion and tyranny. And if you look it up, does the Constitution grant any kind of regulatory authority to the federal government over farms and ranches nationwide, from Hawaii to Bangor, Maine? There is no such authority anywhere. And the 10th Amendment says the power is not delegated to the federal government belong to the states or to the people. And so the states have failed to stand up to the federal government's incursions and encroachments. And while we're sitting here acting like everything's fine and, oh, good, we're going to get to elect another progressive Democrat. And we have this fight all over again with Kamala Harris, who's no more qualified than fly to the moon. And she couldn't even, I mean, what has she done since she's been in there? She says they've protected abortion.
Oh, I mean, they prop her up, and that's what we both know is the Democrats are very good at is they run with the lie, and then the corporate media run with the lie, and when they get proven to be false, they just create another lie. I want to show a 2-minute video of Kamala Harris I just saw today, and then we'll analyze it afterwards. So watch this, sir.
There are reports that say that you have the lowest approval rating of any vice president.
Well, there are polls that also say I have great approval ratings.
Swing voters don't like Harris. How big a drag is Kamala Harris on the ticket?
She's a pretty big drag. I think she was arguably Biden's worst political decision.
They don't like her. There's lots of reasons they don't like her.
Kamala Harris's approval rating is now at 28%, which is an historic low for any modern vice president.
We're hearing it from mainstream media, one outlet after another, one leak after another. That Kamala Harris is the worst vice president ever, the worst politician ever.
We don't see the vice president. What people are saying to me, and I'm sure they're saying it to you, where's the vice president? Some White House officials are feeling that she came off looking unprepared for inevitable questions about when she might visit the southern border.
We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
The point that Lester Holt was making was obvious to anyone else who was watching this interview, which is that the issues at the border are inextricably linked with the portfolio that she's been given.
The border is secure. We have a secure border.
Bidenomics is working.
Prices have gone up. And families and individuals are dealing with the realities of that bread costs more, that gas costs more. And we have to understand what that means. That's about the cost of living going up.
He picked Kamala Harris to be his running mate. She was ranked and is ranked as the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. So he could have gone the other way, but he went to the left.
Joe Biden is running for re-election, and I will be his ticket mate. Full stop. Full stop. That's it.
I mean, unbelievable, right?
God. You know, I've seen some dumb people in Washington, D.C., but boy, she takes the purple ribbon every time.
It's so infuriating, especially
is.
with the pandemic. You know, I was one of the first people to stand up against the lockdowns in the country. You know, we started a Facebook group called Michiganders Against Excessive Quarantine, which grew to 400,000 people in 3 weeks before the Facebook goons took us down. So we've been fighting this narrative that this corporate media creates for over 4 years now. It's just been a knockdown, drag out, fist fight in a phone booth, to be honest with you. And they flat out lie. They will lie to your face, and then they just skip to another lie. And it's just like, we just want to
like you said, like the border's secure. The border is secure. Why? Because she says it is. Yeah. And everybody in the country knows she's lying.
Absolutely. And it still amazes me that 30 to 40% of these people will just blindly follow this garbage. It's just ruining our country. It truly is.
They don't care who is representing the Democrat Party. They will vote for the Democrat no matter what. They could have just gotten out of prison because of the most heinous crimes imaginable. I won't go naming any crimes, but they would if that Democrat gets in. And the Democrats have a history of putting people in there who are absolutely not worthy of the office. Bill and Hillary, they almost put Hillary back after Bill's fiasco. But Bill is still one of their main Democrats that they put on the pedestal. And he was on Oprah and he was talking about being impeached and all the problems he had. And he goes, oh, well, you know, my one mistake, you know, and he started explaining how it was a mistake, but he never mentioned having sex in the Oval Office with Monica was a mistake. It was just how he approached that and how he lied about it and how he shouldn't have been, here again, just playing to what you just said. Lies after lies after lies, and Oprah trying to endorse his lies to everybody. And this is what the national media do for these Democrats, and it convinces people, oh yeah, all these voters, and it's an absolute outrage and shame, and it's disgusting, and it just makes me cry for America, because this is not where we're supposed to be. This being president usually meant that you were an honorable person. And Kamala Harris, well, I don't know if you know the story about Evita Peron, but she's the Evita of America. And you can look up the story yourself and find out why they, because I know this is a family show, so we don't get to discuss what Evita Peron did and what Kamala Harris did to get to the top.
Yeah,
and,
we all know that's for sure.
We'll leave it at that.
It's conditioning. It's classical conditioning. It's Pavlov's dogs, how they just condition their base. Like Sheriff David Clark, I met him and talked to him, and he described them the best. He's like, they're like carpenter ants. Like they just fall right in line, and no matter how much you try to get rid of them, man, they're still there.
They don't leave.
You have to constantly do it. And that's what I've been trying to really talk to folks about is like, hey, when Trump wins in November, it's just not, we just pick our ball up and go home. We got a decade or at least 2 decades to undo this damage and to get good representation on all levels of office, not only constitutional sheriff, but all the way down your local school boards.
Well, that's true. And that's another place where the sheriffs need to pick it up, because families and parents going to school board meetings and being dragged out of there because they're offensive. Those school board people are elected by, for, and of the people, and we have every right to chew them out.
Absolutely.
Or scold them. I can scold somebody who's breaking the law and doing something stupid with my children. Scolding them in a public meeting is not against the law.
Nope.
And if the school board members are offended, too bad.
Tough.
Yeah,
and it's funny, they're getting offended by the very books that are in the school libraries that these folks are reading and stand up against.
Yeah,
it's insane. And you're
it's
right. Shame on the police officers for even taking them outside and saying, "Oh, you got no." You stand up and say, "No."
Can't do that.
They can do what they need to do.
The officer should be turning to the school board and said they have a right to be heard. Just because they're raising their voice a little bit does not mean that we're throwing them out of here. Okay. If they got profane and they got pretty, threatening or anything like that, yes, I would give them a warning to calm down. But now speak your mind and tell everybody here what you came to tell. The Constitution does not protect us from being offended. Okay. It doesn't.
How come these folks who are basically allowing porn in the school libraries aren't getting arrested?
Yeah, that's a good investigation, because there are community standards that establish porn that is against the law for children.
Correct.
And schools violating that is criminal. So I totally agree with you. The sheriff should get busy investigating that.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
So, but let's look at this pushback. Let's look at the federalism. Let's look at the state and federal positioning within our government. Okay. So first, historically speaking, let me ask everybody on this program, who or what formed the federal government? Okay. Who formed the federal government? Well, let me tell you this. The federal government did not form the states, but turn that over, and yes, the 13 original states formed the federal government. And they decided, and there were several states, about almost half the states did not want to form a new federal government at all because they didn't trust it. And Patrick Henry even said, "I smell a rat," because we're giving too much power to the new federal government. And their whole purpose was to make sure that power was divided. So there's 3 separate branches, and there's not supposed to be any bleed over where the executive branch, now we have executive branch officers or the police and sheriffs who say, I have to do whatever the judicial branch tells me to do. I have to do whatever the legislative branch tells me to do. No, you don't. You don't work for those 2 branches. You're the executor of the law, the supreme executor of the law in your county. You're the CLEO, the chief law enforcement officer. This decision even calls us sheriffs the CLEOs, the chief law enforcement officer. You don't answer to anybody else except for the people. Now, look, inside the Constitution, and with the intent of the founding fathers in developing the Constitution, it was to, I think you alluded to this earlier. They wanted limitations to keep the federal government very impotent and small and discreet. If you enumerated these powers are enumerated. In other words, you can go through the Constitution and you can number the powers, specific powers that were granted or delegated to the federal government by the states. And it doesn't even total 40, not even 40. But the federal government, especially the FBI and IRS and a few other bureaucracies, have stolen or usurped thousands. It might even be 5,000. It's thousands and thousands. And so let's look at the enumerated powers. How many law enforcement authorities and assignments were delegated to the federal government by the states? And that's the word in the 10th Amendment, delegated. See, the boss can delegate authorities and powers to his servants, to his employees. So let's go over this real quickly, Garrett. There's 5 law enforcement authorities granted to the federal government. 1, treason. Don't you wish the FBI would investigate treason? But they would be investigating themselves, so they'd have a hard time. 2, counterfeiting. Okay, so we have treason, counterfeiting. 3, felonies committed on the high seas or piracies. And 4, this is out of 4. I say 4 because Article 4, Section 4 tells the federal government that you shall protect the state's borders from invasion. Bang up job they're doing there, huh? And then 5 is a kind of an innocuous one. Laws that are broken against treaties that we have with other countries. Laws against nations is what it's called in Article 1, Section 8. Those are 5 law enforcement authorities, 5 that the federal government has. And outside of that, we, the states, have got to take all of them back. And we've got a lot of work to do. So you sheriffs that think that you have to go along with the federal government when they're outside their constitutional authority, you're wrong, man. You got to wake up. You need to read and understand the Constitution, and you need to understand your role in preserving our constitutional republic and protecting the civil rights of the citizens in your county. If federal or state bureaucrats come into your county and violate the rights of the people, why would you accept that? Why would you sit by with your boots up on your desk and act like there's nothing you should be doing about that? You absolutely should be doing. You should be stopping the Rosa Parks from being arrested in your county or harassed. Your duty is to protect the rights of the people, sir. And where do we see that? Declaration of Independence, right after it talks about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. My right to own property, my right to own the fruits of my labor that is totally crushed and destroyed by the IRS. So when that happens, your duty is to stand in the way, to interpose on behalf of the people, to intervene and let the federal government know you're not going to tolerate it. And if they do that, and after we put them on notice, because that's what we're going to be doing on September 7th, we're going to be developing a regulation, a a new declaration, if you will, an ordinance telling them that the sheriffs are going to sign it and send it to all the bureaucrats, Washington, D.C., the state capitals, and let them know there's a certain amount of things you're not going to do in my county anymore. And the first thing you are going to do is you're going to check with me every time you come into my county and you want to take some sort of action. Do you know that of all the thousands of arrests the FBI made from January 6th, not once did they follow the law? Extradition was not done one time, and that is required in the Constitution when you go from one jurisdiction to the other. Washington, D.C. is a different jurisdiction. And in my case, it says here, hence, and Scalia actually wrote this, and he quotes the Federalist Papers. And he says, hence, a double security arises to the rights of the people. How does that happen? That we have a double security arise to our rights. And it's the next quote. It's the next sentence. Because, quoting again, the different governments will control each other. And folks, sheriffs, it's our job to control each other. And when the federal government or the state government violates the Constitution, violates the rights of the people, it's our job to interpose, to stop it, and to correct it. And yes, this is a peaceful process, and we have lots of proof that this has happened numerous times. I did it to the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers, chased them out of town. We took care of our bridges and the stuff that we needed to do that they said we couldn't do to take care of the people in our county. And we took care of it, and we told them to leave. They left. We took care of it. And folks, this is how we keep it peaceful and effective. We, the people, got to get involved in this with our sheriffs, and we have a great solution for you. Join us at CSPOA.org. Join the CSPOA posse. Become a member, and we train you how to do it in your county and become a member of the posse with your sheriff. And if the sheriff say, I don't want a posse, ask them if they already have one. He'll say, well, I don't think so. If he has a volunteer search and rescue squad, which most sheriffs in this country do, that is a posse. And it works according to the dictates of the sheriff. And you be ready to volunteer and be a part of a Minuteman group that says, yes, Sheriff, we're here to help you no matter what help you need to keep the peace or to protect us from a natural disaster. Whatever it is, we're here to help. And we train you every Wednesday at our CSPOA Posse webinar, just how to do that. And we're happy to have you on board, and we need you. Yes, there is a little bit of a monthly fee, but right now it's only $76 for the Spirit of 76. Go to our website, CSPOA.org, and instead of $99 for the month of July, it's $76. Or you can sign up for the monthly $11. Folks, this is how we bless each other. And this is how we take this to the next level, because we want to fund the solutions that are both peaceful and effective. And right now, I can't tell you of another one that's peaceful and effective. Folks, we've got to get together, and we've got to join this, and we've got to save America. And we're exhausting every peaceful means within our disposal, and we want you to be a part of that. We won't make it if you don't.
Well, and I will put that link in the description on all this video and all my platforms for people to come and join and read about that and everything else. It's the least I can do. Sheriff, hey, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know you have a play with your granddaughter that you're going, and you can tell, I think it was your wife I was texting. I got this under 45 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's perfect. And Garrett, let me tell you, let's do it again.
Hey,
there's still so much to cover, especially with Kamala and Trump. And I really hope Trump gets in there. But imagine what November 6th looks like if he wins. But even worse, what does it look like January 20th when Kamala becomes president of the United States?
Yeah,
folks, we've got a lot of work to do, and we need you involved.
Awesome. Sir, thanks again for your time, and we will definitely have you back on the show.
Thanks,
God
Garrett.
bless
See you soon.
you. You bet you, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow. Great. I'm so glad that he came on the show to give us his knowledge. And obviously, the guy has so much wisdom. It's just a lot of stuff that people need to hear. They don't understand and realize where the power is. And that's why it's so important to get constitutional sheriffs that are going to represent you. Because, hey, look, if President Trump somehow does not win in November and Kamala gets in, they are coming for our Second Amendment. There's no doubt about it. And they're not even hiding, right? They're coming out and telling us that they are. And so we have to have good constitutional sheriffs to say, hey, look, don't come across these county lines and try to enforce that hot garbage, or we will confiscate all your vehicles, right? That's what we need. We need that type of leadership at the local level. And so I'm going to include in the link CSPOA.org. You can find out more about Sheriff Mack and what he's doing and be a part of the posse, which I would strongly encourage you all to be a part of. All right. So God bless you. God bless the state of Michigan. Of course, and always God bless these United States. Until next time.